All right, that time of the morning that you've been waiting for. The newsroom is here with us, with the gentleman and the lady.
Gender imbalance, yet again. It's okay, I'm getting used to it.
Let's welcome Patrick Gadara. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Uko salama?
Niko sawa kabisa.
How's the week been?
The week's been good. So far. Yeah, it's only Wednesday.
David Ohito.
Niko imara.
Uko salama? The week has been well?
So far, so good.
Martin Tua.
I can't say it was very well.
Argentina lost.
Not even the World Cup was good. I was traumatized by something else.
Yes.
That I saw on KTN.
Okay. Hopefully we might discuss it.
I hope so, but
yes.
I don't know. I just mentioned some kids who was going over some bridge in Moibeni.
Yes.
Oh yes.
I was very traumatized.
It's also on the standard today.
We put it on the standard today.
Yes. Right.
Very traumatizing. So that has been my until today.
Clay Mugana missing action last week.
Going for some R&R. Not going for some work.
All right.
Good to see you all, though. I would like us to start with, what we just saw on the news today about the little baby that is Ali. And, it seems that people are now complaining, I should say. It's not even commenting. They're complaining about the little attention that this little child is getting as compared to the last attack that happened in Mombasa, where we had Baby Osinya, and the entire country was centering attention towards this little child. But now it's a different story on this side, and there's a lot of pictures that are going across social media about baby Ali and how much little attention has been paid to him. So I don't know, are we as the media even giving enough attention to this little child?
Martin, let's start with you.
I think probably as opposed to focusing to Baby Ali, I think if you make a comparison with Baby Satrin, there's some difference, because this was like Baby Satrin had a bullet lodged in his head, and it actually was like representing the face of terror at that particular time. What we are witnessing now in Lamu is raiders invading every part of Lamu, yet we still have security forces in that part of the region. It might.
Martin, sorry to cut it short, but this Ali, his foot has been amputated.
I accept.
He has a twin. He cannot play the same he used to play. He represents something also.
Absolutely, I'm not refusing. I mean, at that time, because terror was actually the period that it was striking at the heart of Mombasa, where we have our major tourist attraction. And there was need to bring out this kind of image so that people can see the real face of terror. I agree, probably we could have, maybe we have gotten used to this kind of situation such that we have become lethargic in terms of, we look at these attacks as a routine. Because we've been made now to see them as normal, but I think the fact that we brought it out on KTN and the way we're watching it, I think is focus enough, and the government needs to act about it. But at least there's something that has been done.
Gadara completely disagrees.
Well, I mean, I do disagree, unless in a sense. I think this feeds into a narrative of how the media covers problems to do with the Muslim/Somali community, and how it covers it when it affects the rest of the country. Now, look at it. When they went into Isli on Usalama Watch and grabbed kids, and you had pictures of kids being arrested and being taken to Kasarani, nobody made noise. And this was during the same time you had the Osinya thing, bubbling up. And I remember people were pointing, I mean, isn't that kid, doesn't he have the same rights to a life as Satrin has? But it was completely ignored. I mean, till today, Kasarani is pretty much ignored by most of our press. Even after the Independent Police Oversight Authority comes out saying the police were willy-nilly violating the Constitution, arresting guys without cause, holding them more than 24 hours. They admit this. but our press stays away from it. So in as much as Osinya is the face of the victimhood of the rest of Kenya, I think we refuse to see how we victimize the guys at the coast and the guys in the northeast. When their clerics are being killed, when their mosques are being invaded, we cheer the police, the security forces for this. So I don't find it. I don't think it is accurate. I think it's the media sort of taking its responsibility to say, well, we are now just used to the violence. Actually, that's not the truth. The truth is we have said violence against the rest of Kenya is bad, but against Muslims, well, perhaps they deserve it.
I don't think you could be right, but I don't think that people are looking at this as this young boy as or rather, I tend to call boys young men. This young man as a Muslim. What actually I tend to think is that it tells a story of how the media tends to latch onto ideas that actually, when the government pushes it. During the Baby Osinya thing, the whole thing was the government was trying to push a narrative like, look at what they're doing to us. We are the victims, you see? So this Baby Osinya was supposed to be like the face of terrorism, how terror is affecting Kenya. In this case, this boy here, this young man here is being treated like collateral damage, Right. A bad person was being killed. This boy happened to be, the media, the government has not made this boy like a poster child of terrorism. So that's why the media is not taking it. What it tells, the whole story, it tells like how the media is actually, or rather sometimes fails to give direction. They're actually given instructions.
Don't question the official narratives.
They're actually given instructions. I think that is what is going on in this particular
David,
case.
you've been
I would not look at it as like this Muslim thing and all that. That could be another reason. But I don't think people were looking at this young man.
Let's get David to this conversation.
Let
me look at it this way. It's very easy to blame media for everything, and even media.
And it's easy to defend media also.
To defend themselves. Every other day, when you look at other professions, I see Toyota recalling millions of cars. I see Boeing recalling several jets, and there's not as much hue and cry. One mistake in media, the whole world moves. Look at the case scenario of Baby Ali and Baby Satrin. Bullet in the leg, bullet in the head. Which one is more dangerous?
Oh, come on.
But
these are young children.
One needs a delicate surgery, one can be done in Mombasa. So
because Mombasa is when something is done in Mombasa, it is of a lower status?
Not really. There are equally good doctors down there, and they do their job. The same doctors couldn't do the kind of delicate surgery that we needed in Nairobi. So I want to look at it as two different scenarios. So the way the media primed the story of Satrin, yes, may have been influenced by other factors, but not necessarily that editors went to sleep and they forgot about Baby Ali. But I think Baby Ali has gotten medical attention that he deserved so far.
I think the story here is that there's so many Baby Alis and Baby Osinyas out there. That's the story.
Well,
sure. There are very many Baby Alis and Baby Osinyas out there, and actually at some point I don't want to say like we get overwhelmed, and it's not about bashing the media, but it's just saying the truth or looking at the facts the way they are. Sometimes we fail to set the agenda, and actually the government tends to set the agenda for us. That one is a fact. We cannot deny that. They're very many. I'll just give an example. Probably, maybe it's a bit outdated. Like the fear mongering that preceded Sabasaba. The government actually set the agenda for us, and we actually more or less followed it. And what we forgot to ask is when the government is telling us like these guys are going to cause chaos. That's not my job. You are the government. Take charge. Don't tell me that I should close down my shop because somebody is going to cause chaos. You are the government. You have monopoly of power, monopoly of all these things. Take charge. And we followed it. So that is exactly what is happening here, because what happens in this case is that the person who died is supposedly a bad person.
Okay, let me ask this question differently. Have we done justice or failed Baby Muhammad Ali's story? If you stood here today and asked the four of us, was my story not important enough, as Baby Satrin was saying? Have we failed, or have we done justice to him?
Well, I've seen it on KTN and maybe now on social media the other day. But if it had landed on our desks I don't think we would have ignored that kind of thing. Believe you me, I don't think we had that story on our hands. It never was, because we have reporters who go there, because it's also challenging in terms of where the location in Lamu, in terms of how coverage is supposed to be done, because now you have KDF who have already cordoned that area. And it's our journalists also are finding challenges in terms of how to cover the situation there. So if that story had come to the media when this violence broke out, trust me, nobody would have ignored that story. It never landed on some of our desks. Our reporters never. I mean, like I said, there are challenges. I'm not absorbing them completely,
right,
but I'm saying there are challenges in terms of how coverage is being done there.
Yeah,
but we must also not lose sight of the bigger picture and just focus on an isolated case so that we can bash the media for that.
I don't think it's about bashing the media.
The idea is we also have to look at the situation. We've had issue of government going into Lamu to try and contain the situation. The moment they got there is when even more attacks are taking place. Yeah. And we've been saying these things. So baby Ali is a consequence of bad management in terms of security operation that is happening there. So we must not lose sight of the bigger picture.
I agree with Martin.
Negligence.
I agree with Martin to this extent.
I agree with you on that.
Baby Ali and Baby Osija are both symbols of something. I think the bigger question is, how has the media covered the so-called war on terror that we're having? And I think pretty much it has been rather poor. The other day, the Standard came out with a very short story about this NIS report.
It wasn't a short story. I mean, and I'm not defending this. I'm not defending this because that's where I work. That's where I work.
But seriously,
we had a whole 14 pages of all those plus the NIS report.
No,
I mean, and I'm not defending this because I work for Standard on Sunday.
Making a factual report.
Yes, we had like 14 pages of the whole. It was the most extensive coverage ever of those Peketoni things and the investigations.
Right, well, and here's the thing. I'm talking about
what was the point of
anyway, it says the NIS report that was given to government, I think it was dated June the 4th.
Yeah.
2 weeks before Peketoni. And it says Al-Shabaab were planning attacks. This is the NISA. Government, after the attacks, 2 weeks later, turns up, says the information we have is that it's local political network. Today, we hear of guys around the area of Lamu walking into a mosque, saying, we are Al-Shabaab, doing a sermon, walking out, taking some maize, going back to the forest. You look at everybody who was talking about what is happening in Peketoni, they're saying guys are coming in asking, are you a Muslim? Can you recite the Shahada? Yet government is pushing a narrative that it is not Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab claim it, government is there saying no. Yet they knew it was. Now, in any other country, do you imagine the president would get off scot-free? Do you imagine there would be no cause for him to resign? Where are they? So if we are going to say that, and this is the thing, we talk of vibrant free press, but what's the purpose of having a vibrant free press if it is not to allow us to hold the government to account?
Even a vibrant free press does not operate in a vacuum. There are competing interests on a daily basis that any sane editor worth his or her salt looks at. This month has been too full a plate for any editor across the globe. There's World Cup, which will take a chunk of your airtime or media space, you like it or not. Then there's a code rally and the fine fighting in between takes another chunk. So with just two incidents, Martin here is left with barely a page or two to look at things. So it depends on which story you prime. And I am very sure if you were beaming a World Cup final and you removed it to show Baby Ali's story or Baby Sapchen's story for 30 minutes, you know the consequences you'll pay. So let us look at the totality of the environment under which we play and the competing interests for media coverage. Then we'll look at this thing logically.
With all the due respect, Mr. Hita is right, but at the same time, I'd like to point out one thing. That's not an explanation. No, that's an excuse. Yeah, that's not an explanation. Because just because the World Cup was going on does not mean everything has to stop. Life has to continue. So if at all the World Cup was going on and any place was bombed, so we would not cover it because we will alienate some of our viewers?
No.
I don't think that's how it's supposed to be looked at. Yes, all these things are there. All these are newsworthy events. They need to be looked at. But you cannot say like, oh, we cannot air this, we cannot air Baby Osinya because this is a national. You know, one thing we've not internalized, and that's where these other countries have, is that we have not internalized that the fact that all politics is local. First, it is us before them, before the other countries. So you cannot actually say like, oh, because now we are beaming the World Cup, something major happens in this country, we cannot beam it. I mean, because we are competing or whatever. I mean,
I think, Clay, seriously, that, what we lack here is the idea of holding people to account. You know, that it's not just about saying, you know, you report it and I've done my job. You know, is on insisting on accountability. It is the reason you have a free press, and the freedom of the press did not come for free. You know, it is something that people went out onto the streets to fight for, you know. And so when it is then not utilized, when it is, in my view, it is essentially treated like it is,
Mr. Mutwa can tell you what they went through to get to where they are now. You know? I mean, even Mr. Hito knows what they went through to get where they are now.
So let us actually use it for what's supposed to be. You know, hold these people to account. We talk of Sabaradi. You know, they hyped it. Clearly, they hyped it, and they told us it's going to be chaos, and media ran with it, ran with the narrative, you know. But nobody goes back. I mean, the other day, this social media guys, and I hope we'll get to discuss him, go to check out Alfred Mutua's road.
Maskani.
Which our media was reporting was a fantastic road.
No, okay, fine.
That is another story altogether.
Just a minute. I want us to finish this thing.
There's a story about that issue in the papers, and there's the investigations going on, if you have checked.
That is today's paper.
No, yes, you can actually.
Here's the thing.
I mean, have you read
ask yourself.
There is,
how long did it take for Maskani to go down? You know, he announces it about 2 weeks ago, you know, with his nice picture, which was photoshopped in front of a road, and nobody goes to check it. You know, now after Maskani, well, the picture where he was over there looked quite photoshopped to me.
No, you're getting it wrong. The investigations on what that purported peeling off is all about. So it's in the paper. You read the story.
Yeah, but it's a part of a bigger story anyway. It's a part of a bigger story.
Why not whether the road is good or bad?
No, it's a part of a bigger story.
How that has come to be.
Yeah, it's part of a bigger story.
The road can be good, but
there is bad things.
I think we now need to wind this up. I'll just read a tweet here that's coming in from Maina Mwangi, who is saying, you know, comparing Baby Osinya's situation to Baby Ali's situation is misplaced and wrong. These are two terrible, different situations. But well, that actually goes back to what David was saying. Now, let's now shift our attention to something that is on the front page of today's Standard, and it's about how county units are misusing billions of shillings that belong, of course, to the Kenyan taxpayer. And the Auditor General, Edward Oko, has unearthed how billions allocated to county governments are squandered in wasteful expenditure and even outright diversion to individual pockets through fraudulent claims. And we're seeing different counties having all sorts of diverse ways and creative ways of actually diverting this money. What do you think about... Martin, what do you think about the diversion of funds, fraudulent diversion of funds in the counties?
Well, I have said before that first we have to accept that we agreed that devolution is part and parcel of our system. It's a system that Kenyans voted for in a new constitution, and it is until we change the constitution we have to deal with it. But secondly, the other thing is that we have elected leaders whom we have placed in positions of power. That is the governor, the members of the county assemblies, and they're supposed to chart the way forward in terms of how this devolution works. So if in a particular county, the leadership of that particular area decides that they're going to mess up with the funds and they're going to not do what they're supposed to do, believe you me, at some point this will catch up with them. I've always said that at some point, before we get this thing right, we'll have to jail a few governors, we'll have to jail members of the county assemblies, so that we get this thing right. So that those who imagine that this is a cash cow for them, at some point in time, history will catch up with them. Devolution, Kenyans envisaged when they voted for it that it's bringing the economic and the power from the center to the periphery, in terms of ensuring that what used to be spent at the top and get embezzled by a few would trickle down to the people. So if we have members of county assemblies who are not getting it right and they think this is their cash cow, believe you me, we ought to ensure that the Ethic and Anti-Corruption Commission gets to the bottom of this and deals with it, because if you divert funds which are meant to be utilized by people, it is you are impoverishing the people that who are looking forward to having an economic stability in their area, and we are messing it up, and we are killing the devolution process, which is not what Kenyans want. So the governors must get it right. The members of county assemblies must get it right, and I think as moving forward, probably we have mistakes in terms of how we have designed devolution. Probably we need to place a threshold in terms of who should be a member of the county assembly. Probably there's argument that we only elevated the councillors to become members of county assemblies, and we've not changed anything. That is a debate we should have.
David, David,
we will need to. It's something that we need to have.
Martin, there's a lot of demonizing of governors without real facts and figures on the ground.
Well, the facts are there in the report.
Just give me time, please. You'll have years. There are very many governors out of the 47 that are doing wonderful jobs across the country. And I want to take the case of the northern frontier. Here I mean Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, doing very good jobs. The entire northern frontier, one county, Mandera, received in 1 year of devolution what the entire northern frontier did not get in 50 years of independence. In short, the first time resources are being devolved from the headquarters to these counties. There are so many projects going on, some bad, some ill-conceived. Yes, those we have to deal with. But that does not mean that the governors are not doing a good job. For the first time, we are seeing a place like Mandera, not even a single kilometer of tarmac road. They are building 20 kilometers in the first year. Is that not worth praising? If two, there are those counties that never receive even medical supplies. Now they are doing it. A place like Mandera again did not even have any meaningful security operations. They've hired reservists, they are paying county monies, and today Mandera is safer than Nairobi City, which has dozens of police officers. So let us look at this thing in context and really define. If there are any officers or governors or counties that have misappropriated funds, there are channels through which those funds should be. But you listen to governors, and I challenge you to go and talk to them. The government says we have given them 2 billion shillings. You go to the account, they're saying we are still waiting for the money. The governors last week said the monies for March, April, and May were only disbursed 10 days ago. How do you expect them to have implemented those projects?
So you think, hang on, you think that the story of devolution, again, is being managed from the center?
Yes.
Well, and we are being distracted.
Right now, they are being forced that you pay suppliers through central bank. Why devolve the services if you cannot devolve the payment of the money? And in any case, before that money is released for the projects, it is authorized by the auditor's office, it's authorized by the central bank. Assembly. And why blame the governors?
Well, actually,
just let me respond. I was not demonizing devolution. I was not demonizing governors. I said that we must get this thing right. there are people who are, there are governors, I mean, counties which are doing fantastic work. Yeah. And remember, even the issue of Mandera, you're bringing it now. I brought it up the day they were celebrating their anniversary. And we talked on this show about how the people there are saying that you can disband devolution in all the other counties, but Mandera will stand.
Yes.
We say those are success stories that ought to be told in every other day. And for sure, that's what we're saying. If there are challenges that are happening, you can't find areas, you can find areas whereby there's some funds which are, the auditors has said it, there are areas where they've diverted funds from doing certain stuff, yet they are not supposed to have done that. We have detailed it in the standard. And those are the kind of things we are saying ought not to happen. You've seen members of county assemblies holding governors to ransom. Actually, the governors now are hostages of members of county assembly. It's something that we, as we move forward, we'll need to see how to chart that.
I really have to sorry, let me just jump in here. First, I mean, let's agree, nobody is demonizing devolution itself. I personally think how it's been done, how they've gone about it, is a bit deficient. And then secondly, I think the most important thing to look at least from the perspective of the press, is that we've devolved government, but not the mechanisms for holding government to account. So we don't have a devolved press, for example. Most of the press is still out of Nairobi, is reporting about Mandera out of Nairobi, which means the national conversations tend to overwhelm the conversations at county level. So that these governors aren't reporting, are being held to account by their people on the ground. We're expecting the nation as a whole, the country as a whole, to do it, which is the antithesis of the idea of devolution. So I think that's the first problem. And then secondly is there are, David, to be honest, there are specific instances where these guys are being caught with their hands in the till, governors. Take another example. I'm not just trying to spotlight him, but Alfred Mutua in the Auditor General's report. There was 7.5 million. That was in confidential governor expenditure. No receipts, nothing, and it's paid out in cash. What is it? How is he going and picking out 7.5 M?
At least.
And these are things, they're there. Now, my question is, in everything that the press is looking at, it's very hard for them to simply sit down and say, okay, let's just do Mandera, and then tomorrow let's do this. So there's no continual oversight. I think these are the gaps we have. So we need to have a devolved press that can be looking at this at the county level on a constant basis, and highlighting where it's going right, fine, but also where it's going wrong. And putting a spotlight on these guys, I think that's one of the problems that our press have.
Today is your lucky day, Mr. Gadara. Oheto agrees with you. When it comes to the coverage of the counties and stuff like that, and this is the county boss here, right next to me. But Oheto agrees with you that actually all these things, there's some places that actually we don't have either people on the ground, so the coverage is a little bit scanty. So things trickle into our newsroom or trickle back to Nairobi, and then the way we cover it does not give a full picture. Just like what you're saying, that some governors are complaining. Governors are saying like, this is the only amount of money they've received. When you're back to Nairobi, the central government says that we've given them the whole amount. So actually, the coverage of the counties is still not it's not as elaborate as it should be. I think that's something that probably the media needs to up its game, unless we want to admit that maybe we are not prepared. We are so busy covering the national government at devolution at the national level that we never realize that actually down there also is going to be another challenge.
Don't we also need to look into the history of some of the leaders in the counties, because some of them were civil servants before they took on some of these offices, and knowing that they're now taking on offices in the counties, probably they know where the cash cow is, where to churn the money.
Some of them even know the politicians.
Exactly.
Yes. Some of them know the loophole. Some of them are learning on the job, but others know the loophole loopholes, and through these loopholes, they can either use them to the advantage of the people or the disadvantage, because they can either seal all these loopholes or actually use them to enrich themselves.
I also say another thing. I think the coverage has been a little bit also a bit sensationalist. I looked at the how they were talking about the MCA travel thing, you know, and I thought the question isn't whether MCAs travel. You know, the question is what value that brings back to the county. You know, and I think that is the question from a lot of what I saw and the interviews that were done on TV, I think also on NTV. You know, that wasn't what was being asked. You know, what is the value? Fine, you went to South Africa, or you went to Holland, or you went for some flower show, or whatever.
What's the value?
You know, what is the value? You know, and you know, they keep saying, oh, we go and we get what's it called? The experience. We are shown by Israel how they grow vegetables. Okay, how does that help?
I mean, so they'll come back and grow vegetables.
How does it help? Where is the report they wrote? You know, what's being implemented? These are the questions. I think this is how you force them to become accountable. You know, so it's not just a sensationalist thing that yes, they went and it's a waste of money and
But why blame MCAs if the deputy president can take a hustler's jet and fly?
It comes from the top.
It's a replica of what's happening at the center.
I don't think we should be in the position of saying that because the deputy president was doing some dodgy deal that we should allow the MCAs to do it. You know,
so actually justice should be across the board. The media should unearth all this.
Essentially, it's to hold to account. That is my point. You know, and to hold to account is to insist that, you know, show us, give us. You know, when you say something, you know, prove it. You know, and this is the thing. So it's not just a one-off. We've reported and then let's chill. You know, let's wait. It's insisting on this accountability, you know, and it is why a free press is important. You know, it's saying, you know, we can't have officials who will go and say things, you know, and then never be held to account for it. Never be asked, you know, a year, 2 years later, when they're saying something different, that you remember that day you were telling us this. You know, what has changed? You know, those things don't exist. Guys can jump parties, they can jump positions. You know, Raila, I think he was in the Standard as well, or when he went for this IFTA deal, you know, now he's saying actually Lamu is about TJRC report. You know, which before it was about Al-Shabaab. So, which is which? You know, let's ask the questions. You know, let's hold him to account for what he says. So he might be politicizing the violence in the very same way the government was doing it. You know, but if we don't ask him, if we don't ask them to actually stand up and show us, you know, and prove the things they're saying and support the things they're saying, then we'll always be in this morass of, you know, today they jump here, tomorrow they say there. And
I want to look at this devolution thing in one way. This is one auditor. One day he says governors have returned a lot of money. The next day he says they have used also very many billions. I know there are governance challenges in all counties. We can't run away from the problem. Kenya has a big problem in corruption and governance issues, whether central government or devolved governments. But there is the challenge that some of these counties, and I'm very particular about the marginalized counties, the ones that did not get their fair share of bread over 50 years. These guys have no structures on the ground. You tender for a road, people have to come from Nairobi to go and do your roads there. And when they do this, they have to charge you for coming from Nairobi. So in short, it means that your costs have to be a little bit higher. And to settle on the best one is also very difficult. And two, that they have been lagging behind in terms of infrastructure. So that even reportage is very, again, if you look at those marginalized counties, the level of infrastructure, the penetration of even mobile phone telephony is at 20%, 15%. So it's very difficult, you know, even to report an ordinary case scenario. There are no roads, there's nothing like public transport. While we're talking here of, you know, digitizing matatu system, those guys are using, you know, ramshackles and lorries which are very tattered. So it's really a different part of Kenya. So we must look at the uniqueness. And I agree with Clay that these marginalized counties have been equally marginalized by the media in terms of coverage.
Yeah, and they get to that level of marginalized because he said that they've not been getting their fair share of bread for the past 50 years. And actually that also tells a lot about the media in those 50 years.
Sure.
Because why were we not highlighting these issues in the last 50 years about these so-called marginalized counties that we actually have a word for them, marginalized.
Well, speaking of marginalized counties, I think we'll now have to highlight the story that has been on Martin's mind all week since it aired on KTN, and this is about the children who actually have to go through all kinds of situations to get to school, and then when they get to school, they're only availed with stones. It's very depressing.
You mean they don't have iPads?
There's later,
they don't have laptops?
And don't forget the drug story. We are losing our
Yes, the 1 billion. We'll finish with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
They don't have laptops.
Let's quickly touch on this story in Uasin Gishu. Toddlers have to cross a slippery makeshift bridge, which is the only way to school. The only way to school.
Do they have a governor?
They do have a governor.
That's
Uasin Gishu.
Madago. I think it's Madago, the governor. The governor who is who actually, I think he's a guy who warned some contractors that if you don't build this, you don't come here. He's the governors who actually told some diplomats not to go to his county or something unless they get permission from his office.
He also tried to stop CORD from holding.
Yeah, that's the same governor. I mean,
but, you can get to the Uasin Gishu doesn't only have a governor. Has a member of county assembly, from the grassroots.
Deputy president.
You have there you have gone too far. You have a member of county assembly. You have a member of parliament who has a CDF kitty.
Members of parliament.
Member of parliament. Then you go up. Before you get to the governor.
Yes.
Then after that you can now take it to all the other leaders. But honestly, does that area lack as deficiency of leaders? Is that what you're saying?
Not even that. How much does a bridge
it's
cost?
not the first time. Everybody, you're talking of that. I mean, you saw in Baringo the guys the kids who had to cross hippo-infested waters to go to school. Yeah, So I mean, there is, and this is why I keep saying that there are systemic failures.
But at least this
in how these
the
things
media
are
has
done.
covered this one.
There are problems that cross-cut across. I mean, whether it's across counties and things. And we need to be looking at what the reasons, what are the causes for this. And there has been massive underinvestment in infrastructure. This is nothing new. So when we have people who want to invest, we should be asking, okay, what are our priorities? Where are we putting our money in? And even within counties, looking at their budgets, what is it, where are they putting their monies in terms of building infrastructure? And how is it actually used? So then, example of Mutua's road.
Yeah, like you say, this is the first time we cover this story.
That is obsessed with the road. We are obsessed with children who are going down on some, and they have to be crossed. These are toddlers, not kids.
What is the cause?
And Martin, the question is that this is not the first story that we're seeing. We've have similar stories before, of other situations, and we'll have more, in future. How do we sustain this kind of conversation? Because that is the most important question for us.
Yeah, the Constitution says that the people have a right to participate in the way they are governed. They have to decide on how budgets are allocated to their areas. And I expected the MCA, the leaders of this area, to have prioritized this road, because either way you look at it,
maybe they had to go to Israel to see how this thing.
It's very deplorable.
I think there are two things. You have a good question about how you sustain the conversation. It goes to two things. I think first, the idea of which you're saying of devolving press, so that there is press in the counties to spotlight this sort of thing on a continuous basis. On a continuous basis.
Not just questions. We can also have a perfect opportunity to start providing solutions. I mean, if we mobilize guys to say that this bridge must be fixed for these children, I know the governor will.
Mobilize guys by paying tax.
Yeah, but David, would that be escapism? We are not government, we are not civil society.
Why are we going there to
take a position of government?
To build
not really. We can mobilize the leaders. ask them, challenge them why
this
they
is how
can't
you
fix
hold
this.
them.
This is challenging enough, like actually pointing out. This is challenging.
But those guys, they wrap meat with newspapers. They don't read. That is the problem. If they sat down to read newspapers, then they would know there's a problem. But if you, from the top level of
what he has done,
but this problem here, it probably represents other counties that are going through the same story.
That's what I'm saying. There are two levels.
We are looking at a populace that has no voice. These are children probably below the age of 5, and they have different other problems that they experience, much as it might not sink into their minds that, look, we are seated on stones while in class, and this class is actually divided into class 1 and 2. And by the way, we have to go to school every day. Is there a voice that speaks for these kinds
There are so many voices, including the media is a voice. But as long as the media voice is used for wrapping meat, as has been said by the president and his deputy, then we are not going to solve problems. If they sat down to read the newspaper, and I challenge them, if they are watching, to read page 17 of the and then they would know that this paper is not about wrapping meat, it's about finding solutions to the problems of citizens of this country. And these could be future leaders. These are presidents quoting them.
By the way, one kid died. Dropped in the river before this had happened, before it was highlighted. And I would really want to thank Mercy Kandiye, who did this stuff.
Yes.
She when exposed this, and I asked our team to also go there so that they can be able to check it out. It's unfortunate that a kid had died there, and if you read this story, it's very, like I said, it's traumatizing, because the teacher has to wake up very early to wait for the kids on the other side,
and help
so that they help them to cross, and their misery don't end there. After they have crossed, they go to sit on stones. And we have political rallies of leaders every weekend in Rift Valley. How is that helping?
And using choppers.
If I may, I said there are two levels of this. There is a county level which this needs to be spotlighted on a continual basis. Also at a national level, we need to be asking the causes why, and look at the agenda setting that happens. You mentioned a very nice thing. Political rallies will happen. They don't talk about this. And then when we report political rallies, we don't ask, why didn't they talk about this? We are quite happy to discuss their politics, to discuss their views, their issues. And it always comes down. That is not their issue.
That's why we have spotlighted, and believe you me, so that's why we will not stop until we see a bridge on this.
I think what's going to happen
well, I hope not.
I think this one has actually put even everybody down there to shame, and I think this is the typical case of, this is old style journalism. I mean, the perfect way of doing things here. The perfect way, this is what they call development journalism in any other language. I don't think there's any other word for it. And I think this is a very good thing, because...
was the problem in Baringo solved, the kids who are going across the river?
No, it wasn't.
They've not built a bridge yet.
This is that episodic coverage I tell you.
What is happening is,
if you'll do this today, forget about it in a week. Move on to the next problem.
What is happening is,
these kids will get a bridge as long as the county editor doesn't get a bridge.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much,
Gentlemen,
We'll hold you to account.
Yes.
Let's take to the next
this is
level.
the right step. This is the best step that
the county editor must deliver this.
Yeah, he's going to deliver
the county
but
government.
actually I think this is a very good way, actually.
John Oyato on Twitter says, look at the Weganjo's case. A lot of coverage when he was arrested, but no follow-up, e.g. acquitted of fraud charges recently. Bringing to the question this issue of drug hold. A month ago, or is it several months ago, the French...
Australia.
Yes, Australia, seized 24 billion worth of drug hold, destroyed at sea, a lot of noise made, and that was it. Yesterday, 1 billion worth, 341 kgs or something.
0.7.
Yeah.
The tricky thing about this story is that this vessel has been anchored at the port of Mombasa for more than 14 days. Why it took our officers that lengthy period to discover 341 kilograms is a different story we need to chase. But two, I'm worried about the future of this country, that we have so much drug being transited, docking into our country. I think our kids are just going to lose it.
Two,
there's been a lot of interference, and you saw how government was cagey when the Australian authorities destroyed that huge hall. Where is this drug money going to? Who are the people behind it? It's very tricky for any journalist to try and dig out. It's also, one of the biggest challenges I think facing our current newsrooms. Perhaps my colleague Slay may have one.
I think we need to be, as a country, to be honest about
that you're drug addicts.
No, seriously, we need to be honest about why drugs are transiting over here and why they're landing here. The fact is, they do have people in good positions of power who are associated with this. The Australians said that they couldn't tell our guys, our government, about that drug. The whole they destroyed because they don't trust them. The Americans have reports naming our politicians, saying those are the guys in charge of drugs. And it is something that is whispered or rumored, all over the country, but we are not honest about it. And we want, you're talking about all this money that comes in. I think, was it the World Bank? I looked into it and said that the amount of illicit money that comes into Kenya has gone up 8-fold or something. Yeah, in the last 10 years.
The central bank is saying there's so many
and
new
you wonder why your rents are going up.
Yeah, they're not taking mortgages, loans to
yeah, precisely. You wonder why your rents are going up, why houses are worth a lot.
Actually,
it's all this illicit money that's being pumped in, and that is looking for a place to be laundered. We are becoming a country that launders money.
We clean that money here.
Yeah, precisely.
But actually,
we are not honest about it. We'd rather sort of keep it hidden somewhere in the circle, in the corner, and we blame a few drug addicts. So that those guys are the problem, but not the people in power who are the guys who are actually driving this.
Actually, the failure of probably to detect this for 14 days, and also the fact that a lot of drug is transiting through Kenya, it points to one thing that actually probably we may be reported about, but we don't break it down into specifics. It points down to the failure in it says a lot about our security system. You see, that's because all these things are supposed to be, everything here is about security. This thing stayed in the port for 14 days. Where are our security officers or security operators? How did it get in? All these things. So I think probably maybe the media has been, for the past 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, or maybe for the past 1 year, we've been talking about insecurity or lack of it thereof, but we probably have not broken it down. Fine, look at the drug situation, look at the terrorism situation, look at the poaching situation. But actually, I think it's you who mentioned that actually it's been said a number of times that poaching is actually linked to terrorism. I would not put this also past them because the other drug haul, the one by Australians, it's supposed to have come from another country where actually there's a lot of terrorism going on. You see, so all these things are interlinked, but it says a lot about our security, or rather the level.
In modern day shipping, if you're importing a car today, you're able to track where your car is. Yeah. How come that our security officers, our anti-narcotics department, our intelligence system could not detect that there is a vessel coming, this is the cargo inside, and where is it destined? Once the ship is intercepted, I'm told there's a link to the Navy who did a good job, and let's pat them on the back, who intercepted this particular ship. But then the big question is, why didn't we know about the consignment inside it? And then there's a mystery that is always bandied around, that it's a stateless ship. Yes. And those who arrested are also stateless people, and only suspected to have come from another country, which is perhaps a failed state. We are on the brink of ruining a very beautiful country.
Come from a country which is a failed state. Did they come from Kenya?
My take on this is that issues to do with drugs is big business. And it's big business in terms of even the connections. Not Clay or myself or somebody else who would be the ones dealing in drugs and would not be detected. If it were me or you, would have been taken out a long time ago. So this is something that is happening at very high level.
Not that they don't know, actually they know.
You cannot pretend that the people in system do not know. So and I would not be shocked even that probably the guys who intercepted the Navy Probably they're not at work now.
Do we conclude that the drug lords in this country are untouchables?
Exactly.
Yeah,
all over the world. All over the world, they are untouchable.
Because this is
They run the place.
big connections and big business, and government ought to know about it. It is not something that you want to just say.
But coming back to something Clay said about security, I think we have to also ask ourselves whether these are institutions that are deliberately set up to fail. You know, that they give a veneer that they provide security, but actually they're not. Think about it. Sabasaba rally, they could pour 15,000 people there. They had no problem sourcing them, you know. But when it comes to security for other things, whether it's for poaching, whether it is to stop Peketoni, suddenly we have resource issues. These guys are not set up. Our security systems are not set up to protect you or to protect the resource. In essence, they continue what was there before in the colonial state, where it was set up to protect the government from the people. And that they do very well.
Finally,
extremely well.
Finally, gentlemen, this story, principal's fear over Ruto's order on certificates. Deputy President on Sunday said all the schools withholding certificates of students who do not get their school fees should give them the next day.
I only have a small problem with Mr. Ruto. And I don't think this in 2014 you still do things through ordering. I order security guys to arrest these people, or I will fire them within 48 hours. I order this. I don't think that's the only the way to do things. Fine, some of these schools probably it's not right to withhold somebody's certificate, because it's probably you give somebody a certificate, he'll go get a job, he'll pay back the money. But actually this idea of ordering them, some of them actually, like some of them are private institutions. I would like Mr. Ruto, he has companies to actually set out and say, okay, fine, all these schools that actually are holding, I am paying for these students. I am paying for them. Let him be the philanthropist, and pay for this. You cannot run in 2014. You cannot do things about ordering. You cannot keep on ordering. It is so 1960, and I don't understand why somebody who was born after independence would live actually in pre-independence Kenya in his mind.
Well, I have a different view on that.
Okay.
I think you might fault Ruto, but Ruto was just being ordered from elsewhere. I'll tell you from where. Because this is the law. The deputy president was just stating the law. It is now criminal to withhold certificates from primary school or secondary. It is criminal. It is in the law.
It is in the law.
And
but then
law,
he does not order. He does not have to order. Let the law be followed.
The government was ordered 2 weeks ago by the Senate, because there was a motion in the Senate which was brought to the Senate by Senator Musila. Senator Musila had been actually is behind ensuring that people get certificates. When he was a member of parliament, he moved an amendment in parliament on the National Examinations Act to make it illegal to withhold certificates. So that happened for a while. When it didn't, I think it was informed by many people who were coming to his constituents, the way he was arguing, to ask for, the kids were asking for certificates because they want to join colleges and they were not getting it. So he moved an amendment. So 2 weeks ago, he went back to the Senate and moved a motion compelling government to enable them to obey the law, to have certificates that are withheld to be released to the people.
Martin, just one bit of this argument that you're missing, throwing span in the works. When government is compelled, and this is something that has to do with resources, 14 billion is stuck in the system. What government ought to do, what the deputy president ought to do, is do a circular through Treasury. It's to the Ministry of Education, raise 14 billion, and we obey the law.
Some of these institutions are private.
That is what we're missing from this conversation.
Yes,
maybe it is the way he said he did it.
Let's listen to the reasoning of Clay.
I think, to be fair to Ruto, I think I would want to say he's still suffering from Kano hangovers, where he honed his
and you're being very
skills.
fair.
David.
Yeah, and I think What the statements that have come from him lately, leaves somebody wondering, is that the best way to find solutions? We have teachers who have a very organized way of discussing issues. Why don't you talk to them and say, why are we holding on to certificates? Then because of these fee balances, we are under obligation that if you got education, you should have paid for it. How do we look at the balances and find lasting solutions? But the outbursts for me are populist and just seeking to endear himself to the masses, but it's not problem solving. The actual best way is to hold discussions with these teachers and the parents who still owe a lot of money to these schools and find a solution going forward.
Well, I think, I would agree a little bit with what David is saying. I think it's about looking at what the issues are and not sort of window dressing. And Ruto is a politician. He'll grandstand where he thinks he's going to get votes and approval, But I think for us, as in the press, it's incumbent upon us to investigate the issues. And if we're talking about free education right now, and about the fees balances that are owed, which seem to me to be, they're somewhat opposed, we need to investigate those issues. We need to be looking at how is it that free education is implemented such that people are still left with bills.
Yeah, but some of these are private schools.
Yeah. And even private schools, it's interesting how private schools, because a lot of guys who are moving out of free education in school, in school, free private education, moving to private education. A lot of poor people moving away. So again, there are issues to do with quality of our free education. The question is, how is it actually implemented? And it goes back to, remember before you talk about the guys who are sitting on stone, and you say, yeah, well, they're being given laptops. So
I think probably let's wait for Mr. Ruto
those are things that need to be
give another order on education.
I need to be discussed and highlighted that we actually don't really have proper education policies. We deal with symptoms. So Ruto is dealing with a symptom, but not with the underlying problem.
Yeah, sure.
And that's my issue. That's what we need to be, make it visible.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time.
One last thing. It's totally different, but I don't know whether you guys saw this. On NTV the other day, they did a story about Nubians hiding Kenyatta during the emergency. I don't know whether you guys saw that.
No, we didn't.
Kenyatta was arrested on day one of the emergency. So I was wondering, what do you mean? It was interesting. I just thought I might just highlight it as an example of how our media operates.
Possibly for a few hours before that day one, elapsed. David, what's the big story you're looking for in the week?
I think we must dig behind the story of the drugs. This is one thing that's capable of destroying this country. We cannot let it go. I challenge my colleagues, I challenge fellow editors that we must go and find out who are these peddlers, who are the persons behind them, what actions are we doing, how many more are yet to be discovered.
What? I think like this issue of drugs is like Anglo-leasing. There are shadowy figures who operate these things, and like I said, they are very well connected, and they are untouchables. But going forward, I think my thinking is in terms of the issue of how we're going to make devolution work in terms of the misuse of funds, and it's something that there has to be. We are having a teething problems. Yes, we're in a transition, but there has to be situations and systems made to work in the counties so that we do not have money diverted to other areas where we don't need them. So that I would believe, like if we had if we looked at Uasin Gishu County, probably the funds that they did not need, they would have diverted to building a bridge for those kids and give them desks and proper classrooms. That is the way I think is something that we need to be looking. I will be trying to focus.
You have a pledge. You've given us a pledge.
I have given that pledge. Hold on.
I don't know why you want to give those people desks. They're supposed to be given laptops. What's wrong with you? Actually, I think the whole thing is there's a lot of in as much as we only talk about insecurity probably when there's a bomb blast or maybe something like that. I think the story of insecurity or security or lack of it is something that still needs to be told. It needs to be done, to be looked into deeper, because most of all these problems, they revolve around one thing: insecurity. Most of all these problems that you're having, the baby seniors, the baby earlies, and all these drug things and all that, they revolve around insecurity. And if we
fix that,
and we should stop complaining about somebody killing tourism or travel advisories killing tourism, in as much as you have a place, you live in a country where somebody is shot dead outside a police station and nobody is held accountable. And I mean, that was just one of the cases. Before that, somebody was shot dead outside a prison or a court, yeah. And then you still blame these guys for travel advisories, because I don't think there's any well-meaning American or well-meaning British or just any Kenyan who would want to go to a country where people are shot dead, a string like that, next to security apparatus, and nothing is done about it. I mean, it shows.
Yeah, but the reason they don't want you to go to Heathrow now.
To somebody out there, it just shows like that is a place of lawlessness.
Okay.
So, just one thing. I think that is how the Kenyan government has really succeeded in killing tourism.
Clay Muganda, David Ohito, and Patrick Gadara. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Next week, we'll do this all over again. Same station, same time. Remember, you can lie to some people for some time. You can't lie to all the people all the time.
Yeah, because I think that's why my sister from another is holding me accountable.
Well, thanks, gentlemen. It was